Good morning, welcome to Peacemakers. Glad you could join me today. The Peacemakers is a channel dedicated to strengthening and encouraging born-again Christians to live what they believe. It's not enough to say with our mouths, Lord, Lord. It's not enough to have good doctrine in our minds. If it's not being lived and expressed in our lives, our religion is worthless. True religion, pleasing to the Father, is to look after the widow and the orphan and to keep oneself unstained from the world. Is your Christianity being practiced, or does it abide in your mind? You have to really ask yourself that honestly. How is your Christianity being physically manifested in your life? Now today I want to discuss a type of power in the Christian life. And it's something you're very familiar with, and when I say the word, you might just tune me out because you've already heard it, right? So let me just say this. Jesus needed to be recharged. He needed power from God. Throughout the day of ministering and healing, the power went out of him. How do I know that? The woman who touched the fringe of his garment, saying to herself, if I just touch him, I'll be healed. And she was healed. And Jesus said, I felt the power go out of me. So when Jesus needed to recharge and be renewed and filled with the power, where did he go? He went up into the wilderness to be alone, to pray. Okay, I've said the word pray. That's what the power is all about. I don't want you to tune me out. Hear me out. The disciples grew up in the synagogue. They prayed every Sabbath. They knew prayer very well. They prayed every day. But when they saw Jesus pray, they said, Lord, teach us to pray. So these men who had prayed all their lives suddenly realized they didn't know how to pray. Jesus gave some practical advice. Don't babble on endlessly, as if your many words will bend the ear of God. So it's not in the volume of your words. Don't use vain repetition. Hail Mary, full of grace, over and over again, as if God will be impressed. Like, picture a 3-year-old child in front of you saying watermelon over and over and over and over again. How long before it wears you down to the point where you want that child to be in another room? Don't use vain repetition. Your Father already knows the things you need before you even ask Him. Now, what is it then that we need to be praying if that isn't right? Well, Jesus gives us the example of the Lord's Prayer. And it's not to be quoted over and over again verbatim, as if that in itself is like a magic prayer. It's not. And I've seen things like the prayer of Jabez, as if these prayers are magic, and if we just read the words off the page, magic will happen. No, the magic isn't in the words, kids. God is the power. And what we say to Him needs to first of all be in the Spirit, and it needs to be in truth. Are you praying from your mind, or are you praying from your heart? And my daughter asked me, how do I know the difference? Well, if I tell you I love you from my mind, it's going to be, I love you because you're intelligent and smart, hardworking, faithful, pure. There's so many reasons to love you. You're just a really good person. I'm using my mind to explain things to her, to intellectualize, to justify, but it's not from my heart. It's not from my spirit. So then when I say, listen, I love you so much, I would give my life for you without even thinking about it. I just love you. That's coming from the heart. That is a prayer in the Spirit. It comes right from the depths of what you truly feel and believe. Right from down deep. Not an intellectual justification or rambling or poetic or trying to sound pretty. Our Father, omnipotent, holy, and ever eternal. Heed unto thy Son's request. God isn't impressed with your old King James or your poetry. It needs to be true, and it needs to come from the Spirit. Now, when I say it needs to be true, when you say, I love you, Lord, but if you hate all the people around you, how can your words be true? It says in the Bible, if you don't love what you can see, how can you say you love what you can't see? First, love the people around you. Love the people you can see. And love isn't having a warm, fuzzy emotion for them. Love is practical. It's putting myself second and them first. Read 1 Corinthians 13. It's very clear. Love is about self-sacrifice, putting self back of the bus, and putting everyone else ahead of yourself. So I'm not going to live to fight them for my rights. I'm going to give them what I can to make their lives better. And the number one thing is preaching the gospel. There is no greater love than to preach the gospel to them. If we're preaching the gospel to them, it's because we want them to be saved. We want them to be freed from Satan. We want to see their prison door open and them set free as we were. That's the highest form of love. Well, the highest form of love was Jesus Christ actually giving away his life, laying down his life and letting it go. I'm done. My life is toast. But in doing this, in letting go of my life, I'm going to save all of these. And that was the highest act of love, to give one's life for another. But the second highest is certainly to preach the gospel to them. Yes, you'll be hated, you'll be mocked, blah, blah, blah. But it is the highest act of love. Now, I got off topic there. We're on prayer. So we need to pray in spirit and in truth. The words out of our mouths had better be true if we want God's attention. It's important to realize that the prayers of the saints go up as incense in the presence of God. We want to add our prayers to that incense, that sweet offering that's going up in the throne room of God right now. So when you see Jesus pray, he goes off alone. Do you have a place to go and be alone? Because you may need, Jesus prayed fervently. He prayed passionately, violently, noisily, tearfully. Heart, mind, soul, and strength poured out of him into this prayer. And the Spirit intercedes when words fail with just raw groanings. Just pouring it right out of the depths of your being, even if it's a scream, a shriek, a wail, whatever is coming out of the depths of you, let it go. Let it go to God. And when Jesus was alone in the wilderness with God, communing, his batteries were recharged, his power was renewed, and he carried on to do more of the works that the Father had given him to do. Now, in the underground and home churches overseas, they meet at 4 in the morning and will pray for 4 hours just to get their day started. And one man witnessed their prayers and was astonished at the end of it, where the men had kneeled in a circle. When they got up, there were little puddles of tears at every spot. Like, doesn't that just make you feel like a dirtbag? Me too. Why can't we kneel and pray so fervently, so passionately, that we leave puddles of tears where we were kneeling? Because we're Westerners. We could do 3 or 4 cheeseburgers in a go. We could watch Lord of the Rings trilogy in 12 hours because we're strong like that. But when it comes to devoting ourselves and seeking the power and the presence of God, we are so weak. We are so carnal. And we really need to, if we want to walk as warriors for Christ in this generation, in this Western carnal, gluttonous world. You know, the Muslims mock the West for being gluttonous, lazy pigs and perverts. And they're absolutely right. They're absolutely justified in that. Imagine this, a death cult worshiping Baal with the offerings of blood that Baal craves, mocks the Western world because of its carnality. And they're right in doing it. If you are born again, we need to offer God a better sacrifice. He is worthy of passionate prayer. He's worthy of our dedication. He's worthy of us kneeling in his presence for 4 hours and leaving a puddle of tears when we're done. Have you ever prayed like this before? If not, get alone and pour it all out and let it go from the heart, in spirit and truth. Say what's in the depths of your being, even if it's, God, I'm so frustrated with my life and with what part I play in your plan. All of it is just frustrating to me. If that's what's in your heart, if that's true, then say it. God is not offended by the truth. And God can now move in your life with power, healing and helping you through your unbelief, through your frustrations, through your fears, through your doubts, through whatever it is you're struggling with. The power of God will now move in your life. I hope this encourages you. I hope it gives you a hunger. Listen to Eric Ludy, a YouTube video called Eric Ludy, The Man Under the Stage. A very strong encouragement for prayer. God bless you. Have an awesome day.